progress comes to a world of magic as science and the arcane combine to make marvels. Meet steampunk inventors and orc mystics at the Volsun Hub on beastsofwar.com. High-octane anime action is the name of the game in Relic Knights. Mount up in your mecha and battle for glory at our Relic Knights Hub on beastsofwar.com.
So, hi everybody, I'm back with Dave from Wargames, and today we're having a chat about the 2017 Tournament Pack, or Tournament Rules Pack, sorry, and the rules updates that you guys are going to go through. So, Dave, what do you want to talk about first?
We'll do the Tournament Pack first, I think.
Okay, so explain what it is.
It's a guide for anyone who wants to run or play in tournaments for Dropfleet. It's the first tournament pack that there's been for Dropfleet, so it's quite a big deal. We put quite a lot of work into it. Been to a few tournaments and played in some ourselves as well. Like I've actually played in 2 tournaments this year, which is whoa!
You got to play games.
Yeah, I had to play
didn't
games.
have to work. What?
Yeah, I hardly ever get to play games. It's a rarity for me, but especially tournaments because I never, even when I played other games when I wasn't doing Hawk, I wasn't really a tournament player. Yeah. So the whole tournament ethos I've picked up over years of doing this, but actually playing in a few have been really useful, and the whole team has been involved in tournaments a lot more. We want
for tournaments, there's a completely different mentality. Whenever it's just you and your mate across the tabletop, there's less of that true competitive edge that you always get at a tournament.
Yeah, and you can't avoid that fully. I mean, you want a competitive edge at a tournament. You don't want kind of smash face bam, because that's not really the kind of system that we want Drop Zone or Dropfleet to be, but it's fair and balanced. Yeah. You know, we're lucky in our tournament crowd in that when we do our officials, we have a great crowd of gamers, and it's always really cool. And you know, we don't get any of the nasty side. I mean, things like prize money tends to make that a lot more prevalent. You go, stay away from that because that's just bad news a lot of the time. But
well, as soon as there's a monetary value placed to a tournament, things do get a little bit more cutthroat.
And it's not that kind of thing. But at the same time, Dropfleet and Drop Zone have both been designed as tournament systems. You know, they're played on a 4x4. They're played over the right game length. They're balanced. There isn't any kind of new faction wins every time syndrome. It's not something that I've always said I want to walk around a tournament and see every single unit we sell being used in that tournament somewhere. Yeah,
we see everything you guys have designed for the games. It's a tool in a toolbox. And if you think you're going to need to do that job on the tabletop, you're going to take the tool for the job.
Yeah, you know, I mean, Dropfleet has been a harder game to balance than Drop Zone ever was, and that's hence the rules changes. But it's the first time we've actually done any rules changes for Dropfleet, and we'll get onto those in a bit. That was quite a big deal for us. But you know, working out how scoring would work at tournaments, that took us a while to iron out. But I'm happy with the results, and I think it's pretty good, and hopefully gamers will enjoy it, and it results in a fair, balanced, smooth tournament. That's sort of the point of the tournament pack, really.
Cool. All right, well, you've given me some images here, so we'll bring them up and you can talk me through what we're seeing here, yeah? So what have we got first here?
So obviously, straight out, it's a lot more visual and a lot more polished than work we've done before. You know, there's your cover and the intro, just, you know, that's a kind of fairly soft intro into the pack.
See, this is one thing that I always love about the artwork you do for Dropfleet, because we see the ships on the tabletop and we're so sort of zoomed out from what's going on inside the ships. Having scenes like this where it's just the Admiral walking up through the ship, saluting his men, it's a really nice touch to have. It lets you imagine the world.
You need artwork for these things, for vehicles and spaceships. You know, it's essential.
Yeah. Next up we have.
So this is on Fleet List. So we've come up with 1250. It's the recommended points level for tournament games for Dropfleet. 6 turns. 1250 will yield between 2.5 and 3 hours, which is kind of long for game length, maybe half an hour longer than you would like, but 1250 gives you the toys you want.
It lets you access those bits that you're wanting to play with.
It's about the sweet spot. I think if you were running, I mean, the tournament pack covers all this anyway, but if you were going to run a 2-day event, we would probably suggest 2 games and 2 games. A 1 day, it's 3 games, but it's going to be a fairly long day. Obviously, you just kind of need to be set up for that. A 3 hour game length it's all right, you know, but it works, and it's best because we find if you make it 2.5, a lot of people don't get to turn 6, and you typically score on turns 4 and 6.
Yeah.
So you kind of want to make it all the way through the game. Otherwise, you might feel robbed of the game just because you didn't finish, which is not. It's not the best way to lose games generally.
Yeah. You see, if you're playing the game and actually really going for it, you're going to be planning to actually take the ground, hold the ground, and then just blow stuff up on the upper atmosphere, which is the way the game really works at its best.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on with Dropfleet, and there's a few more dice rolls than there is with Drop Zone. Also, obviously, it's a new system, so at the moment, you know, we would probably not go up to 1500, but in the future, we might drop the game length once people get more familiar.
Yeah, get that speed up and go.
Yeah, because we're still in the early days here, so that's why we're recommending that size. I don't think 1500 is appropriate for tournaments compared to 1250, unless you're going to do 2 and 2 and allow 3.5 hours a round, which you could do. You know, the tournament pack doesn't say, like, you must do this. It just kind of, this is what you should do, and this is what we're going to do at official tournaments, but go and have fun. You know, we wouldn't ever kind of try and steer tournament organisers too heavily down one route. It's just here to provide good suggestions that we find works.
Well, no, that makes perfect sense to me. Makes perfect sense. Okay, I assume just a little list of what people need to bring along on the day.
Simple what you need to bring. Yeah, I mean, this is just kind of a snippet of the contents. Just in case you're wondering where this is in the events section of the website for downloads. If you go to www.hawkwargames.com, events, and then you'll see it in there. And you just download it, and it's a PDF. You're free to print it, do what you like with it.
All right. Well, we'll make sure there's a link through to it down below on Beasts.
Yeah.
Next up, what else do we have happening here? We have painting and modelling.
Yeah, this is a fairly kind of soft section, but you know, we don't generally require fleets to be painted at our tournaments because again, new system, people are always busy. I mean, how we've got like 1 million toy soldiers, everyone has. That's just how it is. You know, it's nice to have a free colour standard, and we always do a painting raffle for that. So, you know, if you've got 3 colours, you go in the painting raffle, and so you might win a prize.
If you qualify.
Yeah, and if you don't have a painted fleet, you don't go in the raffle. So that's how we do it. It's encouraging people to paint models without making it mandatory.
See, I like the idea that you're getting a bonus for actually being someone who likes that aspect of the hobby and is going to go for it.
Yeah, and I mean, a tournament always looks better when there's painted ships. I mean, we obviously do a best painted as well. I usually end up judging that at our own tournaments, and I quite enjoy that, going around and seeing what everyone's done. And it'll be nice to see what the UK Games one is like, because not seen a big array of painted Dropfleet fleets yet. A big tournament.
A little caveat: we are filming this before UK Games.
Yeah, we are. So if you see this afterwards, well, I'd have seen it by then.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. This is the weird thing with recording. Sometimes you'll say a thing, not realize when it's going out, and then 2 months later, oh, Justin, you sound stupid. I always sound stupid.
Yeah.
All right, so next up, tables and terrain. Is this just a little guide on what people should put down?
Yeah. So with Dropfleet, it more so than Drop Zone, it's very specific with scenery. Like, it tells you quite exactly where to put a lot of things, and that's quite important, because things like movement speeds are fixed, and there's not. So it's important where you put the scenery, how much scenery you use, how you actually represent it. Things like debris fields, for example. Like, you could do your classic asteroids on stick things, which looks really good, but is not appropriate for tournament play because you end up in them a lot of the time.
Well, this is something we've actually talked about, as ways to actually make the asteroid fields. And whenever we were coming up to the Dropfleet event that we ran, I actually had an idea, but I didn't actually get to pull it off. So what I wanted to do was, the paper pack assets you guys do?
Yeah.
I was going to take one of those, take some essentially lava rock, rush it up, scatter it on top of that, and then put the Hawk widgets into it, and then put the asteroids on the Hawk widgets, so that if I need to remove them, plant my hand on it, lift it out, lift it out, lift it out, move through it, pop them back in.
You can do that. Yeah, certainly. I mean, for casual play, that's good. I mean, it looks better to have a proper physical asteroid field than it does to have a flat thing. It's more kind of for tournament practicality in this case, but yeah, I mean, I love building scenery, and like a really good looking table is always going to be nicer. Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, tournaments are kind of different because you don't want disputes to arise from scenery, and like, oh, you balanced your ship there, and you know, so this covers every type of scenery in the game, and like what you should be using. You don't have to, again, go nuts, but this is what we recommend you do.
Yeah, you've got some of the missions you recommend for the tournaments in here. Here's one of them, Moonshot. Now, this is one of the classic ones, isn't it?
Yeah, I really like Moonshot. It's if you're going to run a tournament, I would often put this mission in. It's really cool because it changes the shape of the game because you've got a great big moon in the middle, so a 12-inch diameter moon. This is my point about specific scenery sizes. Like if that was a 6-inch diameter moon, it wouldn't really do anything to the game. It needs to be 12, otherwise it's not big enough to make the game go how it goes, which is basically forcing you to flank either way, which completely changes how the whole game will play out.
And it's also something you can actually use it as something that you can hide behind, because it's just such a big lump of stuff. I mean, scenery like this is one at a tournament, because if you fly into a moon, you die instantly. So there's no real need to put a ship on top of it unless it's a strike carrier that can fly underneath. But that's very rare and hardly ever happens. The way you guys did moons for the boot camp, that was perfect. The big half spheres.
Yeah, big half spheres, because they look really impressive. They look great. And then you had a 2D printed base underneath.
If you needed to lift it off,
if you had to put a ship on it, you could take the top off, which is really cool. And it might be a bit too much work for a casual tournament organizer, in which case you can download moons from the site and just print them off, or make your own. You know, there's a million ways you could do it. But if you want a visually awesome looking table, a big half sphere moons look great, and this is a good scenario for like more impressive scenery, which is nice.
Yeah. Okay, the last thing to ask about for the tournaments then is, how do you score? Because you gave me this image here. So what am I looking at here?
Oh yeah, so you've got to have, the thing about Dropfleet is, unlike drop zones, the points you score in a mission, you know, you typically might score anywhere between, say, 5 and 15 VP. This is being very broad, you know. Dropfleet is a lot higher. It's often, you know, in the 20s and the 30s and all sorts of things like that, because you score a lot more points a lot more frequently. There's a lot more ways to score points in Dropfleet than there is in Drop Zone. So, but it varies between missions. So you can't say record VP through the course of the tournament, because one mission might have a lot more VP up for grabs than another. So that's not really fair. So we do a 20-0 system, which a lot of systems do this for tournaments. It's not we're not special in that way. This is quite a lot of work went into the spread of this. So there's a victory points difference, which is a difference between yours and your opponent's VP, and then the actual tournament points you score on the right. We've also added a modifier in here that you score extra VP for destroying a lot of your opponent's ships. This is a new rule that we recommend everybody uses for tournaments, just because it gives a bit more onerous to destruction, which is always nice.
Well, who doesn't love a bit of carnage and mayhem?
Yeah. I mean, there's because again we were all playing in these tournaments, and this spread was originally 0 to 20 victory points, and we were seeing a lot of 20-0s, and 20-0s really unbalance the tournament, because if you get an 11 and 11-9 or whatever, suddenly a 20-0, you're straight away in the top. You know, and you're very hard to shift from there, because that's a lot of difference.
It's the other thing for me. I'm a very casual gamer. The odd time I'll look at a tournament and go, yeah, maybe give that a go. If I go in and I get, say, my initial round, and I'm very lucky and I get another very inexperienced player, I hammer them 20-0 by accident, and then I'm shot up to the top of the tournament, and I'm put up against the veterans,
and
the
you get
hardcore
beasted.
players. And then you get absolutely done. You know, you just nuked. Good night. What happened? I thought I was doing good.
Swiss ranking obviously is something we do as well. So yeah, you're generally pitched against players who are about your equivalent, apart from game one, which is random. Obviously. But after that, you know, that's why a 4 or 5 game tournament is quite nice, because by the time you've got through those games, you kind of know where you sit, and you know, I quite like that, and it means that, you know, the players up top have a bigger challenge to remain up top, because they have to play tougher players. So that's the tournament pack covers that as well, like, you know, Swiss rankings and how you should do that, and things, you know. But I think it's a good solid base. I mean, I'm sure we can improve upon it in the future. It's the first ever tournament pack for Dropfleet. But
well, guess who's going to test it for you? Everybody playing it out there.
Well, play it. You know, enjoy it. Run tournaments. Say, just, you know, go and run tournaments. Tournaments don't have to be kind of beastie smash face kind of events if you don't run them that way. I think tournaments are a really important part of gaming, and really quite fun way of kind of sharpening your skills and learning the game, actually.
Test yourself,
I mean, our tournaments, we always say you don't actually need to like really know the game inside out. You can come and you can learn how to play at a tournament, which is tough, you know, and okay, you're not going to be in the top third probably, but you'll still learn how to play, because you play a lot of games in quite an intense period. And it sticks in the mind like that. And
the chances at a tournament, you're going to face stuff that you're never going to see at your local club. I mean, let's be honest. We're playing at our local club. Say there's... Right, let's be generous. Let's say there's 8 of us that play Dropfleet. 2 for each faction. You'll have 2 styles of Shaltari player, 2 styles of PHR, 2 styles of UCM, and 2 styles of Scourge. And you'll probably see those same lists trotted out week after week after week after
and everyone will tailor their lists against everybody else. You get local meta bubbles. It's always like a problem with gaming in general, is to link those bubbles together, and I think that's one of the most important things that tournaments do. Like, we've seen it with Drop Zone over the years, and that there's like a German meta, there's a French meta, and they're completely different, and there are different metas in the UK, in the US, and certain like whole schools of thought, like, oh yeah, you don't want to take these, and one country goes, no, they're fantastic, what are you talking about? And it all depends on
you're
how...
using them wrong, clearly.
Yeah, or, I mean, some of it comes down to scenery, like Drop Zone, we found this, which is why the tournament pack is quite specific about scenery. You get people, say, playing Drop Zone with 3 buildings, and they go, oh, this wasn't very good.
What the hell?
My Scourge army got flattened. Like, yeah, you're playing with 3 buildings.
What kind of a monster plays Drop Zone Commander with 3 buildings?
It happens, you know, because everyone's used to, you know, your kind of classic 40k table with, you know, 1 Gothic ruin in the middle and a few, you know, sometimes you think you can do that, but it's not that kind of game.
It's so killy. It's so killy if you
there's no maneuver, there's no cover. So the rules do, the tournament pack does define the scenery quite closely to avoid that situation.
But and that's the thing as well that's great. For things like Drop Zone, you have those cardboard scenery packs that they can just pick up and just put a ton of terrain down very quickly. And not a lot of cost.
Dropfleet hardly needs any terrain at all. You get the flat stuff in the 2-player, which is what we recommend for tournaments anyway.
There's a question for you. Will that be coming out as a separate pack for people that want to grab it?
It won't be, but you can download them from the site for free anyway. So if you need to print more, it's not an issue, and you can make your own very, very easily. You know, the only physical scenery we really recommend at tournaments is space stations, because they behave a bit more like ships.
Yeah, they actually have a physical presence.
And we have the modular plastic space station pack, which is awesome for building them for tournaments, because I've got because this is filmed before UK Games, I've got half my team building 100 space stations right now for UK Games Expo's tournament. But you can build maybe 10 per pack at least for tournament size, because the game doesn't really tell you how big it needs to be. You could build more. As
long as you have the correct base size for your station.
Yeah. That's it. Other than that, you could have a tiny little space station and it's still got 15 damage points. It doesn't matter. So whatever you want to do, you know, you can populate a table quite fast with that, and quite inexpensively if you're going to build a lot. And they do make your table look a lot cooler to have actual real space stations rather than cut out ones, which is fine, but not as cool as,
I remember playing games at the boot camp, and it was so fun having the stations on there, because I was trying to take one, my opponent was grabbing another, we were firing the stations at each other, and we're just like, what did you? Whoa, okay.
And they are a really important part of the game, you know, and you would always
recommend stuff that can be as well, depending on your scenario.
You know, and you really should, again, a tournament pack that doesn't have any space station missions in, that's not really getting the most out of the game. Yeah, but the pack, you know, if you read through it, it'll guide you through a lot of this. Like, you should be running these missions. You know, you should have a mix of missions that has some of this, some of that, and a good balanced set of missions will result in balanced lists, which is what you really want to see, rather than kind of tailored lists towards a narrow set of scenarios that all behave the same way. You don't really want that.
Well, you see, if I was doing it myself, I would actually have it as a narrative thing with it, so that each mission leads to each other, with a little bit of a story that your organizer can write up. You know, so say it's an invasion in this quadrant of space, the first thing is the alert call where your ships are being called out. So all UCM players, you have to work with this mission versus all your opponents, because your system is being invaded. And then just work it through from there, because it's fun to do that kind of thing, write up stories.
Oh yeah, you can go full on narrative if you like. I mean, I really like that. We want to do, I've been on about it for ages, but a proper narrative campaign weekend with both systems that's designed for much more for the fun campaign writing side and less for the competitive side. They do gel together, really depends on how you want to run it.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, again, at the boot camp, we actually did a thing where we had games of Drop Zone, and a game of Drop Zone and games of Dropfleet on, like, 2 different rooms. So we were running back and forth saying, lasers coming in, lasers coming in, take it, bombardment.
I love that stuff, yeah, that's really cool running those. We run that as participation games a lot, because that's really nice to have both systems playing together. It's really good fun, it's mayhem, you know, it's not entirely balanced. What will happen, but it's really good fun, and that's, you know,
that's the point.
What do we do this for?
Games don't have to be balanced to be fun now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing is as well. Go to tournaments and smile, talk to people. It's a stupid thing to say. I've been to tournaments for back when I used to play Magic, and sometimes you know, oh yeah, really, I don't play Magic anymore, but I used to. But there were times where you'd kind of sit there and go, so how are you doing it? And they just wouldn't look at you or smile or
they would
anything.
Flip cards at you and expect you to know them.
As a gamer, like I can't stand that. Like I'm in this hobby to have some fun.
Yeah. You see, this is the thing. You get so many different types of people that come to these events. So, yes, you might come to a tournament, come to the table, and find your opponent. They're not really interested in talking to you. They have their own reasons for that. Whatever it is fine. But it's be nice to people while you're there. Have fun while you're there.
Smile.
That's
smile. Meet people. Chat.
Yeah, just have fun.
Yeah,
you know.
Of course, and that's what the hobby's about ultimately. You know,
exactly.
why the hell do we do this for any other purpose? That's
if there's another purpose, I haven't found it.
I always think that exactly. Yeah.
All right, so the next thing you wanted to talk about in this video was some rules changes that are coming.
Yep.
Now, where have these rule changes came from? Is there things you guys were finding as you were getting feedback from the community and stuff that needed looked at and rebalanced?
Yeah. So the Dropfleet release experience was totally different from Drop Zones. You know, Drop Zone, we started very small. It was a kind of build up over a period of a couple of years really, and we got more and more players. We learned, we made adjustments. It was quite organic and quite slow. Dropfleet, suddenly like 4,000 people, like bam, plus the retail launch, all got product in quite a short space of time. So you've got a big player base out of more or less nowhere. And then obviously you've got a lot of feedback straight away, like bam, this is, we went through, Dropfleet was much more heavily play tested than Drop Zone ever was when we wrote the rules. We had focus groups, we had the Admirals who all got involved, a lot of them got involved in the beta test, which was one of the things that Admiral backers got to get involved in that. And that was really invaluable and we learned a lot. It was a much harder system to balance because spaceships, there's a lot less variables in the scenery department. So things have got to be very closely balanced for it to function properly. So that was a challenge. And, I think we did a pretty good job for the first time round. But obviously when it's not in the hands of 200 playtesters, it's suddenly 4,000 people.
Yeah, well, it's not even 4,000 playtesters. It's 4,000 people who are trying to break the system.
Oh, of course, yeah, because all gamers will break systems, and
But it's what we love to do. We love to look for it. I mean, like the first thing that jumped out at me whenever I looked at that book, I looked at it and went, "The Djinn's pretty fierce in a full pack. I'm going to try that."
It is pretty fierce. Yeah, actually, that's one ship that I don't think we've changed. There might be a small points adjustment. I can't remember every single one off the top of my head, but I'll go through them. These have, we've also, when we did the rules changes, because of the number of players and the impact, you don't want to be a kind of sledgehammer on rules when it's quite a new game, because it's quite tempting to kind of get 10 people who email in and really have a big whinge about one rule. It's very tempting to then go, yes, we need to change this without actually talking to more people. And also about the things that people don't talk about that's harder to dredge up, like ships that people aren't taking.
Yeah.
Like, they'll all talk about the broken ones that they don't like and they think are broken and they've had their face smashed with.
Yeah, but
they won't talk about...
See, I don't know, because you get some people that will talk about things that they think are underpowered.
Oh, yeah, you do get that, especially if it's an exciting ship that people really want to take. It's the kind of average cruiser that people don't really take because it's, So we were kind of looking for feedback on those things, but these rules changes, they went through us taking in all that feedback, processing it, coming up with a list of suggestions, posing that to the Talons and Andy Chambers, obviously. We had him involved in this as well to see what he thought because, he wrote the rules, so why would we not involve him? And then, having gone through that, then it went out to the community as an experimental set of changes, which we've not done in the past.
That's the thing I like, though.
Normally with Drop Zone, we just do rules changes and they're official straight away, and that's it. So these were out, I think, for 6 weeks to 2 months or so as experimental. And then we got feedback from those, made a few more minor tweaks, with nothing too major, actually. And now they're official. So these are now official rules changes that we'll be using in tournaments in future. We would strongly suggest players to use these because it's a better game for it.
Yeah. Well, take us through some of the biggest ones here, because you do have 2 pages, so let's not go through every last one.
Yeah,
pick out the biggies for me.
Yeah, so the big stuff. I mean, there's quite a few little tweaks. Big ones, maneuver, shaking off launch assets. This is a big change.
Right.
It's only 1 dice. It's simple, but it's a big change in terms of how it affects the game. So if you launch bombers, bombers have a thrust, say 12 inches.
Yeah.
If you're within 12 inches, they resolve more or less straight away.
Yes.
You place them, your opponent gets a chance to place fighters, and then they resolve.
Yeah.
There's no dodging them. If it's more than 12 inches, you can deploy double thrust. Then the opponent has a chance to shake them off in the next turn if they do course change or full thrust orders to try and shake them off. In the past, that used to be a 4+. You would literally shake off half your bombers just by course change is almost too easy a special order to take because the only penalty is you pick up a minor spike. You can turn twice, you can still shoot. So typically what was going on is people were shaking off too many bombers, then there aren't enough to get through the point defence, and it's just a bit underwhelming. So this is boosting that from a 4 up, so it's now a 5+ to shake off bombers. Quite a big change in terms of how it makes all the carriers in the game more effective at killing ships at range, which is what they were always intended to be anyway.
Yeah. Well, it makes me really happy having the PHR with some of the frigates that can do a little bit of launch and really harass some frigates. Yeah,
the Andromeda, that's a really it's a good ship for that. It's fast, it'll get in your face, and then launch right at the back of the board. Quite early game. It's one of the more unusual ships like that. But yeah, it helps you across the board for all things with launch. Which is really cool. There's a big one with the PHR. Heavy caliber weapons were generally regarded as a bit underwhelming for what they were. They're great if you're shooting against a really big ship. Otherwise, you're not really getting a bonus. So now you get critical hits by exceeding the lock by 1, not 2.
Oh.
So it's quite a big change. So if you need, say, a 3 up to hit an enemy ship, normally a 5+ would do a critical and ignore the armor, and that's now a 4+ with heavy caliber against all ships, not just big ships. So it makes them just all better across the board. That's especially...
You have to think of it. Heavy caliber, it should feel like that. It's a heavy lump of whatever.
It is, yeah. And actually, while we're... I'll skip around through this a bit. While we're on the subject of the PHR turned out to be the hardest fleet to win with because they're so arc limited. They're always over-diced. Like, you've always got more dice with PHR for the points than you get for anyone else on purpose. Because of the arc limited thing. But even that turned out not really to be enough. So now we've linked a lot of the broadsides. So what you want to do with PHR, if you can, is do that classic double broadside thing. If you can get between two ships, bazam, then you get the bonus for all those dice. But previously, you generally needed to be on weapons-free orders to do that, which means you can't turn. So actually being in the position to do that turned out to be very hard to pull off. So we've made a lot of the standard kind of fighting cruisers of the PHR linked, which means you can fire both broadsides on standard orders, so you can still turn.
That's actually quite clever,
Yeah, and that applies to a lot of ships. That applies to the Hector, the Achilles, the Orion, the Icarus. And they all get that role, which is cool and useful. And, it makes the PHR much more dangerous, as they're always meant to be. So it's make them more PHR than they were before, and it balances them up.
I'm not going to complain here. I'm sitting here and I'm taking this on going, woohoo!
Always be scared of your double broadsides. Yeah, so they got the most oomph up PHR. So then you've got other things. So the Admirals, this is a big one. This is something that we just frankly didn't think of when we wrote the rules, and it should have always been in there from the beginning. Previously, you could put your Admiral in any ship you liked. Now he's got to be in a cruiser or bigger. So you can't put an Admiral in a frigate or a Corvette even, which is just not in the spirit of the thing. Because you could put him in a Corvette, descend to atmosphere on turn 1, and then just sit at the back of the board invulnerable for the whole game. Boring. Not really narrative. You want your Admiral in the big ship. So we have a new rule that encourages that, which is that if you put your Admiral in a heavy cruiser, you get a +1 upgrade to your Admiral level for free.
So because I'm in a bigger ship, I have better comm units and stuff to work with.
So that's a heavy ship, so that's battle cruisers and heavy cruisers. And if you put him in a super heavy, a battleship, you go up 2 levels for free. Which is cool. Makes battleships cheaper, effectively, because you get your Admiral cheaper as by way of having a battleship. So it encourages players to take battleships because they're cool, and it's nice to have one with your Admiral in it. It's all very thematic. It means you get a few more command cards without having to spend more points on it if you've gone that way already, which is nice. So that's quite a big change. It's for list building, really. Void Gates have had a few changes. For Shaltari, that was...
Come on, give it to me.
When you mention breaking games and breaking factions, the Shaltari being the tricksy faction, they were always the most breakable, and yes, they did turn out to be broken in a few areas. We've nerfed that. So Void Gates now They can't launch when they max thrust, because technically they weren't launching, they were a conduit, so you could get round that rule. So we've closed that loophole now, can't do that. Also, they can only relocate one token at a time, rather than a whole load all at once. Because you've got a situation where you'd have, say, 6 void gates round one cluster right at the back of the board, dropping tokens all game, pretty much invulnerable because they're at the back of the board. And then on the last turn, you just go whoop, pick them all up and drop them somewhere further. So again, kind of doesn't really give your opponent much time to deal with it, and feels a bit kind of gamey being broken, being beaten like that. So that rule is now out. So there's a couple of other minor nerfs for the Shaltari. The Diamond, the battleship, which is the best ship in the game. Still the best ship in the game, but it's now 290 points, 20 points up. It's the biggest single points change, but it's a big one because it's a bloody awesome ship. We haven't changed the rules. I wanted it to remain as bloody awesome as it always has been, but
you want people to make sure they're paying for the awesome.
You just got to pay for it. They have got a few bonuses, like the Topaz is now cheaper, down to 37 points, because it wasn't seeing, and the Jade's Particle Lance lock goes from a 3-up to a 2-up. So some of their frigates have actually had a boost, so they haven't just been nerfed. The Amethyst has gone down a little bit because it was a bit overpowered, one less dice basically. And the other big change is the glass, the Shaltari Corvette. We had this at a tournament we played at a store in Bromley called Warbore. It was a really good tournament actually, but the guy who won with a list with 27 glass Corvettes. This is the kind of thing that I don't want to see in games. Like, I really don't want to see one thing used in huge numbers. The way the glass is designed.
How was he even able to build that list? Is there not the 33% rule?
No, but it's in multiple battle groups, so you can spread them out. It's not rare. It's got a very big squadron size.
Got it.
So the way this list worked was the glass is a Corvette, so it's meant to kill things in atmosphere, like enemy strike carriers. Every race has Corvettes. Shaltari aren't special like that. But their Corvettes weren't close action, and this is key. So they had a lot of dice. They have, I think, 4 or 5 dice each on 5s. But when you've got 27 of them, and you've got a big scan range because you're Shaltari, doesn't matter that you've only got one hull. If you can't die, you're just sat there rolling a ton of dice every turn and just dicing people off the table. It's not really something we saw coming. Usually it was the same with Drop Zone. The Wolverines at the beginning broke the game. The Wolverine B, the humble little buggy. It's usually those little units that tend to unbalance a game, actually, not the big fatties. So this was the one for Dropfleet, so that's now close action, so that tactic is basically shut down. Because you've got to get close.
I remember myself and John, whenever we actually did the unboxing for the Corvettes, we did them in 2s, and we talked back and forth about them. I did look at the glass and think, oh, that's nasty.
Yeah, it's still good. I mean, it's still just as good as the job it was originally designed for, which is killing strike carriers. We haven't changed that at all. It's just about killing other ships, that it's not anywhere near as good as it used to be. And so that was a fairly big change.
Even then, they can still try it.
You can still have a go.
They can really be posted as guard dogs on those sectors.
You've still got a scan range of 12, so your close action weapons have still got more range than anybody else's. But it's 12, not like 24 or 36 or whatever if you've got things with spikes.
Here's this tiny little laser beam.
So that's gone. The UCM didn't really get much adjustment. The New York's launch has gone up to 7 from 5, so the New York is now kind of into super carrier territory now in terms of how many bombers it gets, which is nice. The St. Petersburg gets a small boost in its lasers, which is nice. The Scourge only really has 2 changes. The Charybdis and the Skylar both go from 4s to 3s on their main weapons. They were both kind of the odd ships, the odd ones out, and they're now just better. It was generally universally loved by Scourge players, this change, and it was needed.
No change to the Djinn here?
No change to the Djinn, no. The Djinn is powerful, but missile frigates are a blunt instrument. It's obvious what you're going to do with them. You can't do anything clever. You're going to fly towards somebody and you're going to shoot them at close range, and that's more or less it. And a good player sees that coming and deals with it.
I just like having the Djinns because I can just post them as a guard dog on something. Anybody comes near to me, I'm just going to come at you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously all Shaltari frigates can sink to Atmo, which is quite nice. And they can do that and just lie in wait and poach, which is cool. You know, I wouldn't suggest you overuse it because you can't shoot much doing that, but
Yeah, but they become like the German wolf pack from World War II. They can just go Submariner on you.
Yep, that was sort of the idea, really. Yeah, I mean, PHR, the Calypsos had a small change to improve it. We've already mentioned the Shaltari changes. So yeah, that's about it, really.
Well, it's nice to see that these rules are getting changed and updated, and you're actually looking for those imbalanced things to actually keep everybody on that nice level playing field.
Yeah, I mean,
how much community feedback would there have been for this?
Oh, loads, hundreds and hundreds of emails, and obviously the forum as well. You know, Liam and Darren may end up processing a lot of the information in. I don't read all of it because I can't, because I've got all the design work to do. So they take in all the feedback, they kind of assimilate it down into kind of a distilled. This is the community gestalt, you know, and there's certain playtest groups that we listen to more specifically. Yeah, we usually show rules changes to Talons, for example, before anything goes out these days. Yeah, because we've got that resource, and we use it as much as we can.
It's quite a nice thing though to actually see that craftsmanship that's going into it. To actually take the time to say, okay, we can't just leave this alone. We need to tweak. Yeah, it's being subtle with the tweaks. I'm seeing nothing here that just feels like you've ripped something apart and went, no, I'm just going to rebuild you and Frankenstein it.
Yeah, no, there's nothing. There's very little in the way of text changes. I mean, we've always got there's always the argument, you know, oh, you've printed these books, you know, oh, they, you know, it should stay current. But then you think, well, would you rather it stay current and be an inferior game, or be adjusted with, you know, 2 sheets of A4 to be a better game? I know what I'd prefer if it was me.
Well, trust me. To boil it down to 2 sheets of A4, that's a very, very clean rules update set for me. You know, if you were coming out with maybe 10, 20 pages, I'd be
yeah. That's more or less version 2 at that point. You kind of... Yeah. We didn't want to do that. I mean, there's other changes that people wanted. We were like, you can't really do that without basically completely rewriting the rules, and we're not doing that because obviously that really does kind of...
And that's often negates everything that's been done.
That's often a matter of opinion. The other thing, actually, that is worth mentioning that's in the tournament pack, not in the rules changes, is there are a few other changes to scoring that we made that are not changes to the core rules, but they're a change to the core rules for tournaments.
Right.
So they're in the tournament pack, not in here.
Right.
Probably the biggest one of those is actually it's about orbital bombardment. You can use these in casual games as well, and we'd strongly suggest that you do. Okay. Because I think it's better. But in the current rule, in the standard rules, you've got, say, a cluster with 4 sectors in it. Yeah. For that sector to not be worth anything, you have to destroy all 4 sectors in the cluster. So the new rule is that if you destroy an individual sector, it drops 1 scoring level. So say if it's a large cluster with 4 sectors and you blow 1 up, it becomes a medium with 3. Got it. Blow 2 up and it becomes a small with 2, and it's worth less VP.
That makes a lot of sense, and it makes orbital bombardment so
massively
much
more important. Yeah, because you can. Yeah, you might not have a chance of actually taking out all of them. It's not easy because I run 2 Madrids in my tournament list, and the Madrid is a really good, cheap orbital bombardment cruiser. I love it. It's great. I'm using it. I was doing a lot of damage, scaring the hell out of my opponent, and in the end, actually doing nothing. And you kind of think they got there, they started bombarding on turn 3, they've been bombarding unmolested all game, and they've scored me nothing. Yeah. Well, apart from the tonnage in orbit.
Yeah, which is you've got your tonnage in orbit. But you're also hopefully killing off the troops that are on the ground with the orbital bombardment.
You know, and people don't really go after them so much because they know that, you know, dice odds-wise, to actually blow up all 4 sectors, you'd have to roll amazingly well by the end of turn 6 to actually blow them all up.
Yeah, but if I can be off taking my own sectors and weakening yours...
Exactly, yeah.
That's leaving me in a far happier position.
If you're going to take out 1, and then on turn 4 it will be worth 3 VP instead of 4 to your opponent, who's got strike carriers there and you don't, well, that's probably worth it. And then by turn 6 it might be down to 2, and now only worth 1 or 2 VP. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. It can shift that balance in your favour, and it makes it feel a lot more tactical as to where you're going to play them.
Yeah, exactly, and that's
makes
obviously
your orbital bombardment ships a bigger target.
It's a big rules boost to all orbital bombardment ships, and as I say, it's not essential. You don't have to use it. There's a few other scoring suggestions as well, actually. Like there's a value system in the core rulebook for all the sectors, and that sectors are worth different values. If for tournament play and for shorter games, we've simplified it so they're just all worth 1. Yeah. So. This is another optional rule, which is why it's not in the rule changes. You don't have to do it, but it's nice to do. So even if you're not actually playing in a tournament, it's worth reading the tournament pack just because it has some suggestions on improving the gameplay in a kind of scoring way.
Yeah, but it's probably a good piece of advice for anyone who is going to a tournament pack a while before the tournament to start playing those tournament style games from the pack.
Yeah, you should. I mean, it's designed to be more competitive and a bit faster because we want to try and bring that game length down if we can.
Yeah.
You know, we tried other things, like one of the things that didn't make it in was the idea that you just don't do ground combat at all, skip it, which was an idea that because you still score based on the number of tokens you put down, so putting more tokens down does matter. But in the end, what it was designed to speed the game up.
Yeah.
But what it actually did was it meant you just spent longer thinking about how many tokens there were down there because they didn't die and they just built up. Yeah. Like, so I've got 23 and you've got... And in the end, it actually isn't any faster than just doing the ground combat, which is more fun anyway. So we took that out. So this is kind of... It was a suggestion, a bit left field, and it didn't really go down all that well. So
you at least tried it to see if it would work.
Yeah, which is why it was experimental.
Yeah.
You know, that's the point. That was one of the things that didn't make it in. You know, so... Yeah, I mean, I would say this isn't the last time we'll ever do this for Dropfleet. I'd hope to not have to do it again for some time. We're not going to constantly prod the rule set all the time. Like that's another thing. Like these are out now. These are going to be given some time to bed in.
Yeah, and let people test them.
Yeah, before we look at it again. So don't expect like monthly rules updates from us because that's not what we're going to do. But you know,
trying to keep pace with that. Now that would be fun.
Yeah, and a pain as well for all concerned because you change one thing and it changes other things as well. Any war game, there's a whole load of variables.
Oh, yeah, it's a domino effect.
Yeah, so you've got to be careful making changes. So these are, I think, well considered, and we've done our homework as much as possible on them. And, you know, they've been well received so far, and, you know, hopefully you'll enjoy them as well.
Yeah. All right, well, Dave, thank you very much. It's nice to hear about the tournament rules pack. It's nice to hear about the rules updates. Everybody, get your comments in below for us. Are you happy with the new rules updates? Are you looking forward to playing some Dropfleet Commander tournaments? Myself and Dave will move on here. We'll see you in another one.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now, and be sure to check out beastsofwar.com for the latest gaming news and gaming Let's Plays. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.